What's up, Dragon Nation? I'm Rich with Dragon Nation Gaming. Welcome back to Space Engineers. Today, all we're going to do is I wanted to make a video on the space tether that I am about to build in survival. Right now, we are in creative, so I could go ahead and get this blueprint out. I'm kind of doing stuff in my survival right now, trying to figure some things out. So I figured while I'm doing that, I still need to get some videos out. So we're going to go ahead and do the blueprint for this contraption. So the first time I designed this, or when I first tried to design the thing, I had a bunch of different plans for it. It was going to be a space elevator, but I finally had to let that go and just turn it into a space tether. A way of passing resources from space down to the ground easily and quickly. But I needed a way to go up there, and it would have just taken way too much time to try to do this in survival on my own. So this is the contraption that I did come up with. Now, when I was building this thing, when I was trying to figure it out, one of my viewers let me know that somebody had already built this, and it kind of sucked because I thought I was the first one to do it, and it turns out that I wasn't. But I guess you could call this my idea of the automated tether builder. I need a better name. I really need a better name for this thing. I can't remember what I called it in the past, but the blueprint no longer exists. That's why I have to go ahead and make a blueprint now. So we might as well get into how this thing works. Well, it's not a simple system. I was about to say it's a very simple system, but it's not. It is pretty complicated, but once you figure it out, it's still not simple. But anyways, let's get into this. So this right here is just so that I could get the blueprint that is in the projector right now. That way we can go ahead and build as this thing goes up. And I'll show you every component and why every bit of this thing is very important to have. So the first one we need to start out with is the pillar. This I just saved into my blueprints, and that way I can put it on a projector. Now, the first time I built this, it took me a while to figure out how long I needed to make this thing. Also, merge blocks and connectors. At first I thought a connector would be good enough, but then I realized that it didn't work with the projectors, and I'll show you why here in a bit. But another thing you have to keep in mind is, I know someone's probably going to give me some shit for having so many conveyor junctions, but these are absolutely necessary. One reason is the way projectors work is as the welders go up, they will weld each piece, but in order for it to weld a piece, it has to be connected to the pillar. The way this is right now, if I just took, let me actually turn on my HUD and I'll show you. If I did it like this and just put a regular, yeah, I did, okay, just a conveyor like that, it's actually, the merge block is actually connected to the connector now, so the connector has to be built before I can build the merge block. Which will not work because now welders are so nerfed that they only build what's directly in front of them. So that merge block would not be built. So I had to put a conveyor junction there because we still need items to be able to pass through, and we also need to connect the merge block. So this right here is the pillar, and as it goes up, let me get rid of this. So all we're going to do is go Control C to copy it. Now, as our little machine goes up, it will build a section at a time. So it will just keep going up until it looks like something like this, going about, shit, I forget how high it is, 21 kilometers, I think it is, until you're outside of the gravity influence of the planet. I don't know. It's been a while. That's something I'll have to figure out again, unfortunately. But let's go ahead and get to our contraption now that we have figured out the pillar. And this is what took me so long, because I had to figure out how many pistons I needed. I needed to figure out how fast those pistons would travel. I had to figure out all the timing for the timer blocks. I had to figure out how to get the projector working correctly. This thing, it took me multiple videos to iron out all the details. So first thing we start with is we need components to be able to use the welders to build the pillar. Now, I can't build like refineries and assemblers on this system because then it would be too heavy and it would be shaky. So I have to build the production facility on the ground, which creates a little bit of problem when you're trying to figure out how to get components to the welders to build the pillar. So all you have to do is just connect by connector, which is good enough in its own, but then the problem comes where you have to keep building as you go up. So this pillar right here, as I go up, I have to build it, which it will not allow me to do with the connectors. The reason for that is the piston. This piston is actually two separate grids. So you have the main body, which is one grid, and then you have the head. Now when it comes to projectors and welding them, the projector will only connect up here if it's connected to the same grid. So if I actually turn, let me see if I can do this without screwing anything up. So if let me see if I can find it. Merge block. I'm looking for the one that says lower. If we shut that off, now you can see that this block right here has not lit up, so I cannot build on it. And that's the whole point about having the merge block, so that these two grids are connected together so that the welders can weld. So if we turn that merge block back on, did it lock? It didn't lock. Are you kidding me? It didn't lock. Alright, merge block. Lower. Yeah, I did turn you on. Why didn't you... Come on. Well, screw you then. I hate your ass. But yeah, if that merge block was actually connected, it would light this block up, which I'll go ahead and I'll probably have to re-log in to do that. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. Alright, so in order to build this thing, it's really, really simple. I started a new pillar here so we could build each thing at a time. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we do come out enough for the pistons and the connectors. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a space that allows the piston to travel back and forth, to retract and extend. Then we need one block for the connector merge block. Then we need 2 blocks for the piston, and this is where the conveyor goes. So now we do need to come up till where we can match the piston with that connector. So we'll put down a conveyor junction, and then, do I have a piston? Yeah, I do. We put down the piston, then we have the connector. Now, I already discussed why we have to connect the merge block, or the projector. Okay, where is... There it is. To this merge block. It's so that that grid is a part of this grid. They're all the same grid so that the welders will actually build. So we'll just put down the merge block for right now. Actually, where is... Or the projector. Do I have it upside down? Yeah, I do. There we go. I just have to make sure it's facing the right way. So the next trouble that I had was figuring out how tall I need the whole contraption to be. Now, I went through a number of different sizes. I did 4 pistons, I did 5, I did 2. Finally, I decided 3 was decent. Any more than that and the whole thing becomes a bit wobbly and screws up a lot. So we'll just put down the 3 pistons. Now, you probably do it a little bit longer because when I designed this, it was back when the game was a little bit older. There have been some changes to the game, so you can actually make it longer now. You just have to make sure that the distances actually match up. And I'll show you the first time that they might not actually show, or they might not match. So right here, we have conveyor junction. As you can see, it doesn't match with that merge block. All we need at the top is a merge block. We don't need a connector because the components are already passing through the bottom one. So all we need is a merge block to hold this thing together as the bottom goes up. And as you can see, it does not line up. So what we have to do is this top piston right here, if I remember correctly, I think it's 2. We have to set the minimum distance, which is the lowest that the piston goes to. I think it's just 2. I need power. Hold on. G. Let's go ahead and put a reactor. The reactor will work since we are in creative. Let's just go ahead and connect it to right there for right now. So what we need to do is we need to actually check to make sure 2 is the right distance. So we need to reverse it until this number goes up to 2, and then we'll reverse it again to bring it back down. And as you can see, it stops right there because that's where we set the minimum distance. Does that match? I think that matches. Yeah, that matches. Well, not perfectly, but it should be good enough. So that's pretty much all there is to the whole system except for the welders. So also what we need to do is we are going to need to set the maximum distance of that piston. So we go ahead and copy this one and then just paste it right over here. It won't let me. Why will you not let me? Well, don't you suck. We need to actually set the max distance. So what we need to do is extend these pistons. So we'll go ahead and reverse it. Another thing you need to keep an eye on is the speed at which the pistons travel. Now, the welders, as I said, they have been nerfed. So we'll reverse that one, and then we'll reverse that one. So what happens now is the welders, not only do they not cover a welding, they've been nerfed so they don't cover as much distance. The welders are also a little bit slower at welding. So you need to make sure that these pistons are traveling at an appropriate speed for those welders to actually weld up the pillar. So now that we got to the top, let's just go ahead and do this real quick so I can... We're just going to go ahead and do conveyor junction so I can show you guys the distance. So here we have where the merge block could go, but it is a little bit low, as you can see. So we have to set the max distance. If I remember correctly, it's 9.6. So max distance 9.6. Then we'll reverse it till it reaches 9.6, and then reverse it again to extend to its maximum length. Is that right? I think it's too high. I think it's 9.5. Let's see. So max distance 9.5. Then we'll reverse it again. There we go. That looks a little too low, but I think that should be all right. So now that we have that piston set up, those pistons at the bottom do not need to be set up because they're going to extend completely. But what you do need to do is you need to set this piston and the one up there. That one's actually really simple. All you do is reverse it until it stops. Once it hits that other connector, it will not go any further. So all you have to do is see that the current position is at 2.3, and that's what you set the max distance for. There you go. And then we would have to set the one up there as well for the same distance. Now these pistons can travel a little bit faster. It's actually a good idea to make them travel a little bit faster. I usually set them to 1. These ones, it's up to you. Just go ahead and test it out and see what you guys like. I think I have those ones set. Let's actually see. What do I have them set to? So velocity is at 0.5. I don't want to really make them go any faster than that, just in case. This is creative, so they do build a little bit faster. When I put this in survival, it might not be that fast. So that's something I'll have to test out when we get in there. So now that we have all the distances set up, all we need to do now is add the welders, which is really, really simple. Now, I don't need a whole lot of welders. The welders that I have here are probably a little too much, but if you wanted to, you could put some armor blocks around this thing to make it look a little bit better, which means you would need to add a few more welders. But right now they will weld up the little bit that we have, all the conveyors and everything else, so we should be good. Then we'll go ahead and put on a conveyor junction. Go ahead and extend this thing to where the first welder will be. We'll put a conveyor junction here, and then I don't think I have the welders actually chosen. Nope. Now, I do have a mod on a creative world. This is the twin welders, which have a higher distance, but I'm not actually going to use them yet. Maybe at some point I will. But we'll go ahead and make sure that the access points are actually matching up. And what you could do is a 3x3, but as you can see, there's not an access point on the side, so we have to make sure that we add a way for the components to get to those welders. So we're just going to add an elbow right here and here. So that's pretty much the system. It's really easy to build. The only thing that you'll have trouble with is when you try to set up the timers. The timers can get a little bit confusing. Also, the projector, you kind of have to figure that one out, because sometimes the game will allow you to just shut the projector off to reset the projection. Sometimes it doesn't work. So it's one of those things where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. So this is the process. Right now I have that timer turned off, which will initiate the entire thing. So the first timer, let's actually go through it. So timer block 1, we have it set for the minimum time. We can actually just tell it to trigger now. But what that does is it turns on the projector, it extends those 3 vertical pistons, so it lifts the welder up, then it makes sure that the welders are on, and then it starts timer block number 2. Timer block number 2 is set for 22 seconds. That's how long it takes those pistons to fully extend. And what that one does is after the 22 seconds, it will extend that upper piston that just has the merge block connected. Then it will make sure that that merge block is on, and then it will start timer block number 3. Timer block number 3 is set for 3 seconds. That's how long it takes this piston right here, the lower one and the top one, to extend. I actually give them a little bit more time just to make sure that that merge block is connected. And after that 3 seconds, it will turn off this lower connector. It will just unlock it. It will make sure that this merge block down here is turned off. It will turn off the projection, so that way we can reset the projection. It will also, is that off? I think it turns the welders off, and then it starts timer number 4. So timer number 4 is set for 3 seconds. After 3 seconds, it will retract the lift pistons, which are the vertical ones. Then it will start timer number 5, which will move the whole thing up again. So that's how long it takes. 22 seconds it takes for those pistons to fully retract. And all it does is it will extend the lower piston. It will make sure that that merge block down here is turned on, and then it will start timer block number 6. After 3 seconds, when that piston is fully extended, it will turn the projector back on. It will make sure that that connector right here is locked. It will start timer number 7. It will make sure that the upper piston is fully retracted, and it will turn the top merge block off, pretty much resetting the system. Now number 7, all that one does is After a couple seconds, I have it turned off right now, that's why it's grayed out, it will just start timer number 1, going back through the entire process all over again. A little bit confusing sometimes, but it's pretty simple once you actually see it working. So right now I have it started, so all I have to do is turn that timer back on, which I have set up on a button right here. So, will you click at all? There it goes. So what it does is it turned on, it made sure the projection was on, make sure the welders, they're on, but they're not, you know what? I know why. Hold on. Timer. They are not actually turned on. Hold on. I forgot. Down here is not connected. So let me go ahead and get those connected real quick, get this all figured out. We'll be right back. Alright, so let's try this again. Now all I have to do is I have to hit this button to start the whole thing. So let's go over this. So first thing that's going to happen is going to make sure that the projector is on and the welders are turned on, then it's going to extend those pistons. Once it reaches the top, which takes 22 seconds, it's going to make sure that merge block is on. That piston will extend to connect the top, and I think it turns off the projector on that timer. Yep, it does. Then that piston will retract, unlock the connector, and turn the merge block off, and reverse the lift pistons. It takes about 22 seconds. It needs to get up to right here. Then it'll do everything in reverse. It'll turn that merge block on. It will extend the piston. And I think that's all that timer actually does. So it should extend. Wait for the merge block to be connected. It'll lock that connector. Turn the projector back on, and everything starts all over again. It will retract that piston, turn that merge block off, and start from scratch. So it's a pretty simple system. It just takes a while to figure out all the details. And as you can see, it will just keep going and keep going until the game crashes or you get bored. So usually what I do is I'll just let this thing build as I'm doing other things. That's the whole point of this thing. So I can still build the tether, but something else is building it. It's like having another person building this tether on their own, so I could go do other stuff. You also have to keep in mind that this will cause a few issues with the game, because especially when these blocks get way up there, about 20 some odd, 21 kilometers, I think, and everything will start getting very, very laggy. That's one of the reasons I haven't really been able to get all the way up into space yet, is because we get to a block count to where the whole thing just destroys my game. Then once we get up to a certain point, the game will no longer allow us to add blocks. And this is a confusion that a lot of people do have, is there is a selection you can make in the menu when you're creating a world that you can turn off block count. So you can build infinitely, but you can't build infinitely because the game has kind of a hard quota. It only allows you to build a certain amount of blocks. So when we get to that point, we have to figure out another way of continuing, which I'll do at some point in my survival. But for now, this one is just a video for the blueprint of this entire system. As you can see, it works perfectly. We just have to get in survival to make sure that those pistons are not moving too fast for the welders, which they probably are. I'll probably have to slow down the entire system, but we'll just have to see in survival. But until then, make sure to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.